Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to this month's Community Wise podcast. I am Holly Long, your host. And this month, at the end of Black History Month, but let's go back. We all know Black History Month is honestly 365 days a year, not just 1 month. But nonetheless, February is the end of Black History Month. And what better way than to talk about Black history as well as economic development, and marrying those in rebuilding a Black Wall Street for the future of Black economic power in Kansas City. So we have one of my favorite people in the world. It is Kim Randolph Davis, the CEO of the Heartland Black Chamber of Commerce. She is here in the building. She took time out of her own podcast, Straight from the Heart. If you don't see it, go see it on YouTube, to come chat with us about Black Wall Street and how we can, the history of Black Wall Street, and how we can emphasize that here in Kansas City in the metro. So no further ado, please welcome our guest, Miss Kim Randolph Davis.
Thank you. You know, all you had to do was call me and say, let's talk. And I was ready to come. Thank you so much for having me. And you are one of my favorite people. You know, you just get to know people and you do great work yourself. So.
Well, we love you. We love you. So let's talk about the history of Black Wall Street. We can talk about Greenwood, and then if you can parlay that into Kansas City, because I mean, at some juncture, 18th and Vine was that place.
Okay, so let's start with this.
Yeah.
Misconceived is 18th and Vine.
Okay.
It wasn't 18th and Vine. It was the Jazz District. Okay. And the Jazz District actually is from 12th Street. And it actually from, I would say, Purcell, all the way over to Prospect. And then back around to about 20, right? And I'd say about 22nd was the Jazz District. The history of Black Kansas City, the line was from 5th and McGee, which is downtown Kansas City, over to 27th Street, and from McGee to Prospect. So the Black community was very vast in Kansas City and in downtown Kansas City. Let's go to Tulsa, which is funny how we are aligned. Right now, the Jazz District is recognized in this generation as 18th and Vine, which is actually from 18th and really when people look at it, it's 18th and Purcell to Woodland. Right. So it's like a 2-block radius. When you go to Greenwood and Archer, it's a 2-block radius that is still left, that was part of historic Black community that thrived, that did well. The interesting part about Black Wall Street, and the thing is, when I learned about it, I was an older grown woman, not just an adult, but I was, you know, over 50 years old, learning about my history and learning that Oklahoma was not the only Black Wall Street in America, but it's the most recognized right now. So let's think about, here's a town where first generation free slaves had nothing and nobody that cared about them in a land that they really did not know. So remember, a lot of these generations of slaves, the only thing they knew were the plantations that they were brought to and traded on, and the Deep South. So we leave the Deep South and we migrate across a country that we really are not familiar with, and we get to a territory and we become re-enslaved by Native Americans. And from there, we start understanding economics and the economic impact that we can have on ourselves. How can we not wait on that 40 acres and a mule, because they didn't give us one? Here is land we can stakehold. So let's do this. And it's one gentleman, and his name escaped me, and when I thought about it, I was like, okay, you know this man's name. However, look it up. There's plenty of history and plenty of literature out there regarding who helped build this. He started claiming stake on land. And as families and freed slaves moved into that territory, he collectively bargained their talents to reinvest in building a town. So nobody had money, but we had to figure out how are we going to build something of value so that we can get money. And so what happened was you had a blacksmith, you had a woman that would do laundry. You had someone that could build a restaurant. You had someone that could teach and educate. You had someone that had learned how to do medicines. They weren't quite a doctor, but they had some, you have to remember there were Africans that used all kinds of herbs and things for healing. People got hurt in Africa. They had to heal them, and they didn't have a medical school to go to. So they used all of this, midwives and pastors. They had to have a spiritual grounding. And so all of them brought what they had, and they started building this town. And then you had to have that group or that salespeople that could go across the railroad tracks and say, hey, sir, I can provide this for you for this amount of money. And then you started bringing the money back into the community. And now we need a bank. So we open a bank and we start collectively all putting our money in this same pot. We are investing through our banking system, our money, and we are making sure that our money is being recirculated in our community. And if it went out of the community, it was as an investment that would bring more in. So the misconceived notion about Black Wall Street was nobody talks about where they came from, what they had, and that they did not go out with their hands out begging people across the railroad track to give them a few coins. They became shoe shine parlors. They became barbers. They became contractors. They started building and fixing houses and building houses and doing the things that would pay them. Now, did they get paid with what they were worth? Probably not. But they understood that under collective bargaining, we can continue to grow. So I'm a beautician, and my neighbor,
Recession proof.
My neighbor, she does laundry, and she wants to go and apply to do the laundry across the railroad tracks. Am I going to send her across the railroad track with her hair a mess? And no, I'm going to say, come on over and I'm going to fix you up. I'm going to make sure you are sale ready and you don't owe me anything. But what'll happen is maybe I've got to go to the grocery store and I got about 4 kids. Oh, girl, go ahead and go to the store. I got these kids. We have, if we're going to bring it to Kansas City, and I think the question is, can we bring it to Kansas City? The answer is yes and no. Yes, because there is a formula to do it.
Yeah, let's talk about the formula.
There is a formula. The formula is, number one, we've got to heal within our own family.
Oh.
And when I say our own family, I mean as a culture, within our own culture. We cannot love others until we love ourselves. And we spend a lot of time trying to be included instead of including. This was the secret sauce that they had in Oklahoma. They went out and started including those on the other side of the railroad tracks, even though they hated them. You got to remember, they didn't like them, but they were willing to do business with them because they provided a service with good customer service in spite of how they were even being treated. We have got to figure out, number one, how do we heal within our own community? How do we do that first? So that now we can trust one another to be able to say, let's sit down, let us strategize, and let us build our own 40 acres and breed our own mules. Now we're talking about collective bargaining. Now we're talking about investing in the community in which we live, work, and play, and that we want to save. Yeah. And now we have something to put on the table to say to the government or anybody else, now we want to match to our investment. Not we want you to give us a piece of your investment. We have our investment. Match it, and we can decide how we make it move.
So last year, the Heartland Black Chamber brought in a couple of people from
Mhm.
the area.
Yes.
Talk to us about your experience when you first went down there, because you mentioned a little story when you introduced them. Talk to us a little bit about that.
So it was really ironic. I just took a leap of faith. I had saw the documentary that they had out, and I was like, something was gnawing in the back of my head. And we had this event, and every time we had events with our small businesses, it was always access to capital, access to capital, And in the back of my head, I was like, there was a time we had nothing. How did that work? And so I went there with the mindset that I wanted to know, how did first generation freed slaves develop and grow and build one of the most economically sound and viable towns in America and be all Black? How did that happen in a country that we know has historically been racist? Mm-hmm. So I went there. I started calling and communicating, looking up who I could talk to a couple of people, and I connected with Freeman Culver. And Freeman is a pastor, but he is the president and CEO of the Greenwood Chamber, which was originally the Black Wall Street Chamber of Commerce. Well, it was Greenwood always, but it was Black Wall Street. And he said, come on down. Yeah. I'm going to show you, and I'm going to introduce you to a historian. And the one historian who is still in one of the buildings on Archer, I think it is, or Greenwood, because Archer runs east and west, and Greenwood runs north and south, I think. Either way, it's Cross. But he's in one of the offices there, and his name is Hannibal. And Hannibal took me in his office and gave me a history lesson that changed even how I looked at myself and my resiliency and what I could bring to Kansas City. And I started seeing their street, you still have Black businesses on their street. You still have, you had some empty spaces on your street, but then you also saw where so much of it had been sold off. Like right at the end of the street is their baseball stadium, which is connected to the street. So you walk down the street and you walk into this like little archway, and it is the entry to the stadium. And there's a restaurant, and it's all white on. Across the street on the opposite side of Greenwood, the Pfizers have built the interactive museum that depicts the massacre. Yeah. It's a beautiful depiction, but they're paying to go see their history. Yeah. When you think about how much we give up trying to get something for nothing, it blocks us from doing what we need to do.
Ooh, yeah.
We have so much opportunity right here in Kansas City. Let's look at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. It is Black history that, because of the Negro Leagues, if you really study the history, they had a lot to do with the economic development and opportunities and doors that were open, not just in Kansas City, but across the world. And we don't take pride in the fact that we have Black history right here. The Kansas City Jazz Museum. Yeah. Jazz on, this is a funny thing. I grew up at Centennial United Methodist Church, which is on the corner of 19th and Woodland. Yeah. And there's an organ in our church that I believe, and I usually get it wrong, but I think it was Duke Ellington, and it might have been Count Basie, but I think it was Duke Ellington. The jazz musicians, and they've had everybody in their church from Ella Fitzgerald to all the greats, would play on Saturday night, go to the Mutual Musicians Foundation, which it was a house, which was right on the corner of the parking lot of the church, would do jam sessions. When church started, they would walk across the parking lot, come in, do music in the church, and then go home and go to sleep.
Wow.
That's when we had community. That's when we had investment in ourselves. We made sure that even in our education, we never were afforded the same curriculum as the prominent white schools. And as a matter of fact, our curriculum was dummied down from white schools that we became more and more enrolled in. But we took pride. We had teachers that made sure that we learned, that we understood that education was our freedom.
Yeah.
And that in that education, if we invested our education back into our community, we'd be a whole lot further along.
Question for you. The systemic issues that we often talk about in economic development, such as systemic racism, health disparities, all of that, education, all of that intertwines into housing redlining, all those things that lead us into community development right now.
Yes, yes.
With all of those being said, if we are to listen, which I do agree, start focusing more on our futures versus the history, reverence the history, of course.
Of course.
Never forget it.
Yeah.
But bind up those wounds and keep moving forward. Where would you see community development if that advice was actually taken?
You get angry when you see all the things that are happening in the world today.
Absolutely.
Start look for when we go into the civil rights movement. I remember growing up and Eye on the Prize.
Yep. We all had to watch it.
Yeah, to watch it. Every Black History Month.
Yep.
And it was a whole full week every day. They even put it on the television so you wouldn't miss it. We call ourselves African American. And it took me a long time to understand this. As a child of a three-war veteran, World War II, Korean War, and Vietnam War, three of the hardest wars that could have been fought in America.
And he survived. My father came home and lived 5 years before he passed. 7 years before he passed. I think about his whole life was military. He gave everything that he had for this country. And when that flag goes up, Betsy may have not sewn it for me specifically, but it's mine. The land that I stand on, this is my land. When you plant a seed, that's where your roots are. That's where your roots are. Do we have ancestry from other parts of the world? Absolutely. But when you plant a seed in your garden, roots grow right there. So we need to stop saying we don't have roots. We do have roots. We need to realize that we're an American and we're unapologetically Black, but we are proud Americans. And you can't take that from us. That's where the system is working because we are working in the system. We're allowing ourselves to believe that we are less than our counterparts or anybody else. When we see another ethnicity come to this country and thrive, we say it's because they don't like Black people. But when I look at some of the things that they do when they come to this country and how they collectively help one another. The Indians come here, one will buy a gas station. He will get it up and going. He will invite somebody here. They will train them at that gas station. They open another gas station. Absolutely.
They bring somebody else in
the wealth
and they train another one and you buy another gas station. And you look up and you've got Phillips 66s all over Kansas City. This is how it works. It works when we heal within ourselves, when we decide that it is not about being included, it's about inclusion. And you set your own table. Invite people to your table. Because when you invite people to your table, they have to eat what's on your table. When you go to somebody else's house, you're going to have to eat what they feed you. And sometimes you don't like it. Some people can't cook. So we have to really work our way into number one, and it's all going to start with us healing within ourselves. It goes back, I can't love you if I don't love myself. I cannot. And because we have so much discontent and disconnection amongst one another. I hear so many times the different organizations, they go in these rooms and they talk to our counterparts, and they are downplaying or down talking another organization. And when I go, and some of these organizations set you up to do that. I get asked all the time about the other Black chamber. And my answer is this: why are you asking me that question? What's the difference between the Greater Kansas City Chamber, the Lee Summit Chamber, or the Raytown Chamber? When we have more than one chamber in it, do we need all these towns that have chambers? Because aren't you the Greater Kansas City Chamber?
Shouldn't it be regional?
Shouldn't it be regional? Okay, so please do not even attempt to try to destroy a relationship that I should be having with someone that's doing the work, because there's a lot of work to be done, and one of us can't do it. We need
Divide and conquer.
Divide and conquer. And so until we can learn to heal within ourselves and not allow people to feed us food that we don't even like the taste of, and start cooking our own meals and then inviting people to come in and be a part of who we are, we're always going to be on the outside looking in.
And it's really up to us as a community to decide where we're going to go and to address those things of internal healing, making our own tables. That is a place for everyone, and to pass along. And we talked about other cultures that have done this well and are thriving. And we are constantly wondering, well, why can't we?
Why can't we do it?
Why can't we do that? Well, you summed it up. It is collaboration versus working in silos. It is leveraging what we have.
Yes.
And building it up.
Yes.
Right? It's all of those things that we do in community development. And community development is, as you will, because you work in this space, it's complicated.
It is.
But at the same time, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
So any concluding thoughts about Black Wall Street, whether or not it could come here or not? What do you see for community development in the next couple of years? What is the Heartland Black Chamber doing to further community development? Any final concluding thought you got? Whatever you want. The floor is yours.
So when it comes to Black Wall Street, I'm very interested in replicating some of the steps that they took to build it.
Right.
The thing that I think that we're trying to do is start with partnerships. We've stepped away from having corporate sponsors. We are looking at real partnerships and how to be a part of the system. The system is a capitalistic system. So let's start being realistic about where we are and what we're dealing with. And so we are in a capitalistic system, and we have to get off the socialistic mindset. When I say socialistic, meaning that we fight for social services that we're not willing to give. And we are not willing to use our voices by showing up and finding out who your legislators are, understanding the policy, getting some civics under your belt. These are things that the chamber is trying to put out there so that people can see. These are the things that we need to know. Education is truly the most valuable piece of property that you can own. Your education and understanding is something that they cannot take from you. Again, I said the dollar will fluctuate. You know, some days you can go to another country and your dollar is worth $25 to $1. You might go there the next time and it's $3 to $1. So the dollar fluctuates, but your education and your knowledge, that's power. Number 2, pass it on. We have been really bad about going into these leadership positions and not knowing when to step down.
Ooh.
We have to be able to open the door for the next generation who has the new education. Because when you get it, that's why it's called retirement, because it gets to a point where your mind is not trying to learn all the new stuff. And so you got to have somebody that can go in those rooms and understand the language and be on top of that. That's how we can continue to sell our value. When we have the same person trying to sell the values from the 70s, we're going to get paid from the 70s. But when we go in saying, we're right on top of this, we understand your AI, we understand the technology that's going on, we understand robotics, there's all kinds of things that we understand. We've got to start educating and then stepping down and moving out of the way. And then lastly, I'll say this. Heartland Black Chamber is working toward being the economic convener.
Oh, that's
It was
good.
something Mr. Gates said to me. Mr. Gates is one of my mentors. And I was with him last week and he said, you know what you are, Kim? He said, you are an economic surgeon. You are to carve and heal and fix the disease. You are an economic, and it has stuck with me. It's like, how do I do economic surgery? And when I think about it, it is number one, look into those who have gone before me, who have done it right, and try to see how I implement it. And then utilizing what I've learned to pass it to the one behind me and move out the way so they can take what I brought to the table, leave it on the table so they can use what I have and bring what they have and figure out how do we continue to grow and change mindsets. And I think that's it.
So just to recap, could we re-implement a Black Wall Street in Kansas City in 2026? The answer is yes and no. The bottom line is, and what we do at LISC transcends every area. We have to stop working in silos and work as a community and as a collective impact. So with that being said, we will see you on the other side.